Have you ever wondered what crime looked like before smartphones, GPS, or digital fingerprints? A time when criminals made headlines in newspapers and law enforcement was still figuring out how to catch them? One of the most famous figures from that era was John Herbert Dillinger, a daring bank robber whose crimes during the Great Depression captured the attention of the entire nation. At the same time, the agency that would become today's FBI was learning to grow, adapt, and become a real force in law enforcement. But how did criminals like Dillinger operate without being caught immediately? And how has crime changed since then? What tools and methods does the modern FBI use that Dillinger could never have imagined? In this video, we'll explore the dramatic difference between crime in the 1930s and crime today. We'll also see how the FBI has transformed, from hunting bank robbers to taking on cybercrime, terrorism, and global criminal networks. If you're ready to dive into this fascinating story, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the Narco Files. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss a journey into the hidden side of crime and law enforcement. Part 1. Who was John Dillinger? In the early 1930s, the United States was in the grip of the Great Depression, a time when money was scarce, jobs were hard to find, and many families were struggling to survive. Banks had failed, communities were in despair, and crime began to rise as some people looked for quick ways to make ends meet. Out of this chaos emerged John Herbert Dillinger, born on June 22, 1903, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Dillinger grew up in a difficult environment and quickly ran into trouble with the law. He dropped out of school and began making choices that led him into crime at a young age. His early offenses eventually set him on a path to becoming one of the most notorious bank robbers in American history. After serving time in prison for an initial robbery, Dillinger was paroled in 1933. Almost immediately, he returned to crime, this time with bigger ambitions. Over the next year, he and his gang robbed banks across the Midwest, stole weapons from police arsenals, and even carried out daring jailbreaks. Dillinger's crimes were violent and dangerous. His gang was involved in killings, gunfights, and armed confrontations with law enforcement. Yet, despite the danger, Dillinger captured the public's imagination. Newspapers often romanticized him as a Depression-era anti-hero, someone who seemed to defy the law while surviving in a harsh world. His bold robberies, cunning escapes, and the drama surrounding his life made him a headline figure, cementing his place in American criminal history. Part 2. How the FBI got involved. At the time of John Dillinger's crime spree, the FBI was very different from the powerful agency we know today. In the early 1930s, it was still called the Bureau of Investigation, and it had limited tools and authority to track criminals across state lines. Back then, law enforcement was mostly local, and many crimes, including bank robberies, prison escapes, and even murders, were handled by local police. For much of Dillinger's early crime career, he wasn't technically breaking federal law. But that changed in March 1934, when Dillinger made a critical mistake. After escaping from jail, he stole a sheriff's car and drove it across state lines. This violated the National Motor Vehicle Theft Act, which gave federal authorities the power to pursue him. That's when the FBI officially stepped in. Once the Bureau was involved, the hunt for Dillinger escalated quickly. Using fingerprint records, agents identified Dillinger's gang and began a nationwide manhunt. They coordinated with local police departments, followed every tip, and tracked the gang across multiple states. Finally, on July 22, 1934, FBI agents cornered Dillinger outside the Biograph Theater in Chicago, thanks to information from an informant. As he tried to escape, agents fired, fatally wounding him. Dillinger's death didn't just end his crime spree. It symbolized the end of the 1930s gangster era and helped the FBI grow into the strong, professional law enforcement agency we know today, capable of tackling criminals across the nation. Part 3. Crime in the 1930s versus crime today. It's easy to look back at the 1930s and romanticize it, but crime in that era was brutal, real, and often violent. John Dillinger and his gang operated in a world with loose police coordination, inconsistent laws between states, and very limited technology. Communication was slow, and while fingerprints and early forensic tools were beginning to be used, investigators had nowhere near the resources law enforcement has today. Bank robbery was one of the most dramatic crimes of the time. Banks held easily recognizable money and were often poorly protected. Criminals relied on cars, guns, and sheer force to carry out their heists. Jailbreaks were daring and dangerous. Some criminals, like Dillinger, even became folk heroes in the eyes of the public, especially because so many people were struggling during the Great Depression. Fast forward to today, and the world of crime looks very different. Bank robberies still happen, but they are far less common than other forms of crime. The FBI now deals with crimes that would have been unimaginable in Dillinger's time. These include cybercrime, hacking, identity theft, ransomware, and digital fraud, terrorism and domestic extremism, threats that can reach across the globe, organized crime networks, including multinational drug trafficking and money laundering, transnational crime, crimes that cross borders and involve complex financial systems, white-collar crimes, financial fraud, healthcare scams, and corporate corruption. Modern crimes require advanced technology, intelligence-based investigations, international cooperation, and highly trained personnel. Unlike the 1930s, law enforcement today works in a connected, global network, making it much harder for criminals to operate freely. The contrast between crime then and now shows how much both crime and policing have evolved. Part 4. What the modern FBI does. Today, the FBI is much more than a crime-fighting agency. It has grown into a national security organization with responsibilities far beyond anything that existed in John Dillinger's era. The Bureau now works to protect the United States and its citizens from a wide range of threats, both domestic and international. One of its top priorities is terrorism. The FBI works to prevent attacks and dismantle terrorist networks in the US and around the world. Alongside that, counterintelligence is another major focus. The Bureau investigates spies and foreign efforts to steal government or business secrets, keeping national security intact. Cybercrime is a growing challenge in today's digital world. The FBI investigates identity theft, ransomware, hacking, and attacks on critical infrastructure. Its cyber division collaborates with partners to protect individuals, companies, and government systems from online threats. Organized crime has also evolved. Modern criminal networks operate across borders and include drug trafficking, human trafficking, financial fraud, and cyber-enabled operations. The FBI investigates these complex networks to bring criminals to justice. The Bureau still handles violent crimes, such as kidnappings, attacks on federal officers, and civil rights violations. White-collar crime investigations protect the economy by addressing corporate fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. Protecting civil rights is another key mission, covering hate crimes, human trafficking, and other violations. To manage all these areas, the FBI uses advanced technology, intelligence gathering, forensic science, and strong partnerships with other agencies. Its agents receive training and support that would have been unimaginable in the 1930s. From tracking bank robbers like Dillinger to preventing cyber attacks and terrorism today, the FBI has transformed completely. The contrast shows how much crime has evolved and how law enforcement has had to evolve even faster to keep up. Part 5. Tools. Then and now. In the 1930s, law enforcement had very basic tools to catch criminals. Investigators relied on fingerprints and simple forensic evidence, newspaper headlines, and wanted posters to track suspects. They used informants and tips from local police, but communication was slow, often limited to telegraphs and basic phone lines. Catching someone like John Dillinger required patience, coordination, and a lot of luck. Today, the world of investigation looks completely different. The FBI uses digital surveillance and cyber tracking to follow criminals online. High-tech forensic tools, DNA analysis, and advanced laboratory testing make it easier to link suspects to crimes. Agents have access to global databases that connect law enforcement agencies around the world, helping them track suspects across borders. Modern investigations also use artificial intelligence and data analytics to detect patterns and predict criminal activity. International task forces allow the FBI to cooperate with other countries, tackling crimes that span continents. This transformation means criminals today face far more sophisticated investigations than in the 1930s. While Dillinger could evade capture through bold moves and luck, modern criminals must navigate a world where technology, intelligence, and global cooperation make it much harder to stay free. The evolution of tools and techniques shows just how much law enforcement has advanced and how crime itself has changed. Part 6. The Legacy of Dillinger and the FBI. John Dillinger's story isn't just about a notorious criminal. It's about a turning point for law enforcement in America. His daring bank robberies, jailbreaks, and escapes exposed the limits of the FBI, which at the time was still developing its authority, tools, and nationwide reach. The manhunt for Dillinger and other criminals of the era showed that the Bureau needed more power, better resources, and national authority to track dangerous criminals effectively. By the mid-1930s, the FBI had begun expanding its capabilities, growing into an agency ready to handle far more complex crimes in the decades to come. Dillinger's crimes were dramatic, but they happened in a world with no computers, no satellites, and no global networks. Today, the FBI operates differently. Modern law enforcement is a sophisticated mix of detectives, intelligence analysts, cyber experts, and global partners prepared to tackle crime that can be silent, digital, and international. Dillinger's era reminds us how far both crime and policing have evolved. Crime has changed a lot over the years. Back in the 1930s, it was bank robbers, jailbreaks, guns, and newspapers. Today, it's hackers, cyber networks, terrorism, and global crime syndicates. The FBI has changed too, from a small bureau chasing bank robbers to a leading agency protecting national security and public safety. John Dillinger's story marked the end of one era and the start of a new one in law enforcement. But it makes you wonder, how would Dillinger survive in today's world of technology and surveillance? And what does that say about how crime and law enforcement have evolved? If you enjoyed this journey through history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from the Narco files. What other criminal eras would you like us to explore next?